يا أهل الجنة إن ربكم تبارك وتعالى يستزيركم فحي على زيارته.
Did we stop last week, but I did not hear an answer. Who can answer? Naam, Jazakallah khair. So, nawaqidul wudu, things that break wudu. We went through all of them. We spoke in a bit of detail with regards to the most controversial one we can say of the nawaqid of wudu, which is mas of the ajnabiyya, so touching skin to skin with the opposite gender. We went to the adilla as to why our schools say what we say. Khair. Now, this week inshallah, we will do the second most important, or you could say the second major part with regards to Tahārah. Okay, Tahārah we can say is divided into two sections, which is Hadathul Asghar and Hadathul Akbar. So Hadathul Asghar, which the small or the lesser impurity, minor impurity one can say, which we spoke about, are those things that require wudu and so on. And inshallah we'll touch on a bit more about that. And now we're on the second part, which is Al-Ghusl. Ghusl in translation, you could say in English, is the purificatory bath. Naam, the purificatory bath. Now, Al-Ghusl, linguistically, Ghusl, it just means allowing water to flow over something unconditionally. Okay, unconditionally allowing some water to flow over something. And when I say something, it could be a body, human body, it could be clothes, it could be carpet, it could be your car, whatever it may be. Unconditionally, without niyyah, without tartib, nothing of the sort. Okay, so this is technically what ghusl means. This is why you have ikhtilafat, where you will see in a hadith where the Prophet ﷺ would say something, and then some would understand it in one way, other scholars would understand it a different way. Some of the scholars would say, no, that is the lughawi meaning, that is the linguistic meaning. Most famous example, who can give it to me? Who can give me the most famous example of this? Bid'atu hasana. The incident of Umar radiallahu anhu, when he saw people praying Tarawih, remember, and he joined them up and he said bid'atu hasana. Now that's where some say nope, he took it the linguistic meaning, or this is something new, but not in religion and so on. Likewise over here, ghusl, if you can remember last week we spoke about things that do not break wudu, and we said according to the Shafi'ī madhab and other schools as well, Imam Abu Hanifa, Imam Shafi'ī, if I'm not wrong, Imam Malik as well, is of the opinion that eating camel meat does not break wudu. And from that hadith, the word ghusl is mentioned, where the Prophet ﷺ, he mentions the word ghusl and tells the companion to perform ghusl. Now some have taken the linguistic meaning to say it means wash your hands, so it's just literally just wash yourself. Some have taken it to mean you have to do al-wudu. But anyway, that is the linguistic meaning. And then you have the Shar'i meaning, which means to pour water over the full body with specific intention or intentions, which inshallah we'll touch on. Okay, so and when we say specific intention, meaning whether it is wajib, whether it is sunnah, and so on. Okay, so this is the Shar'i meaning. So remember we said when Sharia comes, a lot of these words are given a whole different meaning when we speak about them in Sharia. Now, before we even get into the chapter itself, ghusl we can say is of 4 types. We have wajibat, okay, the wajib ghusl, which inshallah we will touch on, which is what this chapter is about. And then we have the sunnah ghusl. Give me an example. Who can give me an example of the sunnah ghusl? No, that's far. When someone passes away, Naam, Jum'ah, Any other one? Sunnah. Come on. Should be easy. Should be flowing off your tongues. Eid and so on. Yes. Eid. We'll get to the Sunnah babs as well. We'll mention a few of them. But Jum'ah, Eidain and so on. These are the main ones. And then we've got the Mubah. Mubah, which, who can remember the definition of Mubah? Yeah, his hand went up first. None. So these are acts with which you are not rewarded for doing and you're not sinful for doing them. Or you're not rewarded for leaving them out, or you're not sinful for leaving them out. Okay, so these are, you could say, matters that are just there. Now, an example of mubah bath would be, for example, your normal daily, you wake up, you have a shower. Or you have a shower to cool down for the likes, and so on. Or you, I don't know, you finish football and the like, you need to go have a shower. These are all just mubah. Okay, they're just mubah. And then we have the haram ghusl. Now someone might be thinking, what is a haram ghusl? Who can give me an example of a haram ghusl? Go on, ask anyone who had
the man injured himself, and then they slowly make him more and put them more harm to end up dying in that situation.
So what would your answer be to this? Tell me what, like, for example, Sunnah ghusl, you gave me an example, Jum'ah, Eid, and the likes. Okay, so that's a general one. That principle of anything that would cause harm to you, of course, is haram. Likewise, ghusl in that case, but something more specific. Okay, not a bad example, using dirty or filthy water. But one I was looking for is the haid, for example. The woman in haid, if she performs ghusl with the intention of lifting off the state of janaba, the state of haid, this is haram. She is actually sinful. Okay, so when, for example, when the woman is on her monthly cycle and she knows she's right in the middle, bang in the middle, she goes and performs ghusl with the intention of removing this state, she becomes sinful for doing so. So this will fall under the muharramat. But like we said, inshallah, today we will be focusing on the wajib or the wajibat or the fara'id. So, bismillah. So, the Musannif, rahimahullah, he says, فَصْلٌ وَالَّذِي يُوجِبُ الْغُسْلَ سِتَّةُ أَشْيَاءَ. So, those things which necessitate ghusl are 6. Inshallah, we'll do the English in a bit. ثلاثة تشترك فيها الرجال والنساء. So 3 out of these 6 include both men and women. 3 out of these 6 include both men and women. وهي 1. التقاء الختانين. In short, intercourse. Inshallah, we'll talk a bit more about that. Number 2, inzalul mani. So, ejaculation of sexual fluid. Number 3, al-maut, which is death. Yeah, so actually let's touch on them. No. Yeah, okay, so وَثَلَاثَةٌ تَخْتَصُّ بِهَا النِّسَاءُ وَهِيَ. And there's 3 other things which are specific for women only. So 3 things which cause or make it fard upon someone to have ghusl. These 3 are wajib for women only. Number 1, hayd, of course, monthly cycle, nifas, postnatal bleeding, and al-wilada, which is giving birth. Of course, all of these 3, no man can do it. Even if you become a transgender these days and so on, you will never be able to experience these. Now, you'll never. These are specific to women. This is the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So these 6 causes, so we said 3 are for both men and women, and 3 for women alone. So if we're to mention the 3 for women alone, inshallah, we'll just mention a few points on them as well. Number 1, hayd, we said the monthly cycle is for women alone. Number 2, nifas, postnatal bleeding. Postnatal bleeding is the bleeding which comes after giving birth. And number 3 is giving birth. Someone might be thinking, what's the difference between point 2 and 3? But inshallah we'll mention them get to it. And 3 which are for both, or 3 causes, 3 reasons which necessitate both men and women to have ghusl are intercourse, ejaculation of sexual fluid, and death. Okay, these 3 include both. Now when we say al-rijal and nisa, men and women, we mean we include even those who may not have are not at the age of bulugh, even those that are not at the age of maturity according to Sharia. In some cases they fall under these categories here, which they have to perform wudu. Now before we touch on these individually, this ghusl, we need to remember, or the question might come up, is it ala al-fawr or ala al-tarahi? Meaning, does one have to immediately do ghusl once they are in any of these states, or they can delay it? Who can give me the answer to that? Anyone? If someone is in any of these states, do they have to immediately go and do ghusl, or they can delay it? Like, for example? Okay. Naam. Okay, 1 minute. Someone's saying something on Zoom. Let me just mute everyone for now. Where's the options? Oh, it's in the chats. Okay, can everyone on Zoom please mute your mics? Okay, I'll actually mute them. Okay, طيب. So, what was I'm going? Bismillah. So you're along the right track. Majority of the time you would say is you don't have to do it straight away. So for example, you slept with your wife after Fajr, you don't have to go and have a shower straight away. You sleep, wake up after and do ghusl, or even the woman in haid, once her haid finishes, for example, as long as she's not in a time where salat time is restricted, so say for example there's 15 minutes left for Asr and her haid just finished, she has to do ghusl quickly. So it will depend, like you said, but majority of the time it will be it's not a must. It's not a must to do it straight away. Khair. So if we touch on intercourse. Khair. Now the Musannif, he says iltikha'ul khitanayn. So what this means, obviously we've translated it as intercourse, but the literal meaning is when the 2 private parts meet. So the private part, of course, of a man and a woman meet, this necessitates ghusl. Now what it actually means is, it means penetration alone. Penetration alone, and some ulama, or a lot of the ulama, if I'm not mistaken, I think it's all of the ulama, they're in agreement that the extent of the head being inserted into the woman's private parts, this necessitates ghusl. Okay, so you don't have to go all the way for ghusl to be fard upon you. So if for whatever reason you go in that extent and you come out, you still both have to do ghusl, the man and the woman. Now, one may ask the question, okay, what about a new Muslim or a Muslim who has not been circumcised? What's the case for them? So the case for these individuals, in short, will be if they insert the you could say like the normal size of the head, that extent will also necessitate ghusl for them as well. And this is regardless if inserted in the front or the rear, wal-iyadhu billah. Okay, so regardless, whether in the front or the rear, this will necessitate ghusl. And obviously with regards to the dalil for this, we know the Prophet ﷺ, he said, so Rasulullah ﷺ, he said, إِذَا الْتَقَى الْخِتَانَانِ فَقَدْ وَجَبَ الْغُسُلُ. So when the two private parts come together, ghusl has become fard. And even if there is no ejaculation, okay, so even if there is no ejaculation, ghusl is still fard. Now some might ask, oh, what if someone wears protection? So I don't know, say a couple are doing family planning for whatever reason, and one of them wears protection, or the man wears protection, is ghusl wajib upon them if they have intercourse, or dukhul actually happens, but there is no inzal, there is no ejaculation? Yes, even for such, ghusl is still fard on both individuals. Now, there's an objection. One might raise the objection to quote the hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, where he sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, "Innama al-ma'u min al-ma'." Indeed, water is from water, meaning water, ghusl, having a shower, is from or is due to releasing water, meaning releasing mani. Now, we just said previous to this, even if there's no ejaculation, there is no ghusl is still wajib, even if there's no ejaculation. And an answer to this, the ulama they give, we say that this is mansukh. This hadith has been abrogated due to the hadith which we just mentioned at the beginning, where the Prophet ﷺ, he said, إِذَا الْتَقَى الْخِتَانَانِ فَقَدْ وَجَبَ الْغُسُلُ. And in the narration of Imam Muslim, rahimahullah, he actually adds, وَإِن لَمْ يُنزِلْ, even if he does not ejaculate, which means that we take that hadith over this hadith and say this hadith has been abrogated, even though this hadith is sahih as well. Okay, even though this hadith is sahih as well. And Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu, he mentions, he says that this hadith, إِنَّمَا الْمَاءُ مِنَ الْمَاءِ, basically refers to the wet dream. So if we take the understanding of Ibn Abbas, everything just falls into place. Yeah, everything falls into place, even if you enter upon your spouse but you do not ejaculate, ghusl will still be fard. And this hadith, we will take it to mean, or according to the understanding of Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu, that this refers to the wet dream. So if someone has a wet dream, they've released ma, meaning they've released water, then they must perform ghusl. And next, again, may Allah protect us from such acts, it's wajib for the one living only. It's important to mention this. Because the ulama have mentioned this, that unfortunately, even today you find sick, very sick people in the mind. Even if someone has passed away, they will still go and do obscene acts with them. Yeah, so if that is the case and so on, ghusl becomes wajib, of course, only on the living person. Only upon the living person. Okay, so that is the first point, which is intercourse. Next is ejaculation of sexual fluid. And we're calling it sexual fluid or seminal fluid intentionally because both men and women release this. If we just say semen, you'll have some people that say, oh, women do not have semen and the likes, but they all have sexual fluid. So this is why the musannif or the ulama have put this in a separate categories, because just mere release of seminal fluid, even without intercourse, because we know someone can ejaculate without intercourse. It's very possible, obviously, that one can have intercourse and not ejaculate, or one can ejaculate without intercourse and the likes. And for this, obviously, wet dream and so on. Now, regardless of amount, even if it's a bit of semen, only a bit of sexual fluid released, this will necessitate ghusl. This will necessitate ghusl. And this is whether you're asleep or awake. Whether you're asleep or awake. Now, how does one know whether they've released semen or not? So, we'll get rid of this. Now, I thought this was probably the best time to bring this in. There's 3 types of discharge that come from, especially the man. Obviously, if we put urine aside, so we have semen, madhi, and wadhi. These 3 are, you could say, the white fluids that come from the man. These 3 white fluids that come from the man, of course, putting urine aside, and obviously with women, putting blood aside. First, semen is characteristics. The characteristics of semen is basically, it comes out with desire or with pleasure, and normally comes out with desire and pleasure. Number 2, second characteristic, it is thick and sticky. And number 3 is it comes out in squirts. It comes out in squirts. Where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, خُلِقَ مِن مَاءٍ دَافِقٍ. Now, you've been created from water gushing forth. Yeah, you've been created from water gushing forth. So they've said that one of the characteristics of this is it comes out in squirts, and the main characteristic is that it comes out after pleasure. Normally comes out after pleasure. Now, the ruling of semen, we said last week, it is pure. Semen is pure. We mentioned that it does not break wudu. You'll remember about semen, mani, not breaking al-wudu. Can you remember? Do you remember the Arabic or the English?
Something greater doesn't necessitate the wudu or along those lines.
No, something along those lines. Along those lines, yes. ما أوجب أعظم أمرين بخصوصه لم يوجب أدونهما بعمومه. That which necessitates the greater of 2 things due to its specificness does not necessitate the lower due to generalness. And we gave an example. We said, so if someone releases money only, this necessitates a ghusl straight away. Necessitates a ghusl straight away, so wudu will be wiped out. And we gave another example. We said the zani, the one who performs zina. If they are not married and they perform zina, the punishment we said is 100 lashes, right? And the one who is married but performs zina, the punishment is stoning. Now, if we put this principle there, we said the one who is married, the muhsin who is married, and he does such an act, you're not going to lash him first and then stone him. You'll go straight to the greater of the 2, which is stoning. And it necessitates ghusl. Whereas madhi, so madhi is basically precoital fluid, which is the English term, and it's non-lustful discharge. So it's different to mani, where it is not lustful. And the physical characteristics as well, the difference is that it is thin, but it is also sticky. It is also sticky, and at times you will not even feel it coming out. Sometimes you will not even feel madhi coming out. So usually you'll see people, this happens normally at foreplay with the spouse, or if someone is thinking about something that arouses them or they're not meant to be thinking about. Madhi may come out without you even realizing, and you may just see it on your garments. And then you have wadi, which is thick, cloudy fluid, which is probably the most rare out of the 3. Not many people experience this. It usually comes out after urinating or lifting something heavy. Now, not many people would have experienced this, but this is another type of white fluid which comes out of the private parts, and there's no desire. It comes out without any desire. And the ruling for these two is, one, they are najis, so they are impure and must be washed. Number two is they break wudu, which is contrary to mani, which we just mentioned, and it only requires wudu and it does not require ghusl. Now, so let's say, for example, someone has a doubt whether they've released mani or madhi. What do they do? And I don't want anyone to tell me just have a shower to be sure, to be precautionate. Yeah, I know, because that we know. That's not the question. So someone has a doubt whether, so you wake up in the morning and you're not sure whether that is mani or if that is madhi. What would you do? Just make wudu. Okay, so you would count it to be madhi in that case. You'll take it to be madhi.
Me personally, I would have a shower.
Yeah, so according to the madhab, you have a choice. Okay, according to the madhab, you have a choice. So you can either take it as mani and have a shower, or you can either take it as madhi and perform wudu only. But obviously, if you could clearly see from the characteristics that it is one or the other, then it is what you think it is, basically. Okay, it will be according to the characteristics of it. So, but obviously we know al-afdal is to actually perform ghusl, always the best. And then we have death. Of course, everyone is included. Men, women, adults, children, and so on. Everyone is included except for... Come on. Who? No. We're just talking about the Muslims right now. Well, the one who doesn't pray, according to that opinion you gave, it means they are kafir, so they're not included. Except for the martyrs, the shuhada. Okay, it is haram to wash the shuhada. They are not washed, nor are they prayed upon. We'll get, of course, inshallah, into more detail when we get to Kitāb al Bab of Janaiz. But the martyrs, they are not washed during once they are martyred, and Salatul Janazah is not performed upon them either. So, but one thing we need to make sure is, or actually remember, is that this is from the shuhada or from the battlefield only. Because we know the Prophet ﷺ, he said, meaning that there are certain things, so whoever dies like with a stomach illness, they are shaheed. Whoever is burnt alive, they are shaheed. Whoever drowns, they are shaheed. Or dies under a collapsed building, they are shaheed, and so on. But say someone does die out of a stomach illness, will we say, oh, they're shaheed, we're not going to wash them? No. Yeah, you have to wash these individuals. And the ulama have said, of course, that they will have the ajr of the shuhada, but on earth the ruling applies just like the normal Muslim who passes away. So they have to be washed. They have to be washed. And the adillah for the shuhada are many, inshallah. Like I said, when we get to that chapter, we will talk more on that. And then we said there is three which are specific to women. So, let's just mention these anyway. So number one we said is hayd. So we'll only just touch a few on the touch on a few points on these, because inshallah when we get to the chapter of hayd we'll go in a bit deeper with regards to this. So hayd is basically that blood which comes from a woman after the age of 9. And we say 9 lunar years, not solar years. So following the Hijri calendar, 9 years old according to the Hijri calendar, because we know obviously the days differ. every year, like 10 days go back, so there will there'll be a difference. And anything that comes, or any blood that comes from a woman before the age of 9, this is known as istihādah, and she just washes herself and she carries on as normal. Inshallah, we'll touch more on that when we get to the chapter of Hayd. And then we said the second point, which is specific to women only, is nifas, postnatal bleeding. So after someone gives birth, after a woman gives birth and they bleed, this is known as postnatal bleeding, and we'll touch on its rulings as well. So the basic rulings on it are the same as Hayd, but we'll touch on the minimum and the maximum time and so on. And according to our school, I thought I would mention this, it is blood that follows a baby. According to our school, because Imam Ahmad, for example, he mentions that say a woman is in labor or is likely to give birth and they bleed before the baby comes out, that is nifas as well, according to Imam Ahmad. But according to us is no. As soon as life is given, as soon as a baby is born, the blood that comes after that will be classed as damun nifas. Okay? And then the third, which is exclusive to women, we said is wilada, is giving birth. Now, someone might think, what's the difference between this and nifas? They're both giving birth. But with wilada is, you could give birth, for example, C-section, cesarean, which we have nowadays. Or the most common one is, some people actually, or some women actually give birth without bleeding at all. Allah has created them in such a way, or has allowed them to give birth that no blood whatsoever. And another thing that the ulama mentioned, they say that this baby that comes out is sperm in essence. In essence, this child that comes out is nothing but sperm. But of course in a different form. So due to that as well, even if there is no blood, due to giving birth, you will have to perform ghusl, if we take that or link that up to the second point, which was releasing of, with the release of sexual fluid, which is sperm in this case. Yeah, so this is for women only. And we can see, so with regards to the wajibat of ghusl or the mujibat of ghusl, those things which necessitate ghusl, for women is 6, for men is 3. Okay, so women, there's 6 causes that make it a must for them. Yeah, so when we just mentioned them, we said the intercourse, ejaculation of seminal fluid, death, and these 3 for women. Khair. Now we'll touch on the integrals of ghusl, or one can say the fara'id of ghusl, the wajibat of ghusl, things that are a must for one's ghusl to be accepted. So previous to this we spoke about, or we mentioned the things which necessitate ghusl. Now things which are a must in ghusl. The Musannif rahimahullah, he mentions, he says, وَفَرَائِضُ الْغُسْلِ ثَلَاثَةُ أَشْيَاءَ. So the fara'id acts, the compulsory acts of ghusl are 3. Number 1, an-niyya, which is the intention. Number 2, إِزَالَةُ النَّجَاسَةِ إِنْ كَانَتْ عَلَى بَدَنِهِ, removing of najasa or impurity if it is on the body. And number 3, وَإِيصَالُ الْمَاءِ إِلَى جَمِيعِ الشَّعْرِ وَالْبَشَرَةِ. So pouring water over the whole body, in short. So the skin and the hair, all of it has to be soaked in water, or has to be made wet. And we'll mention that inshallah, touch on that. So if you can remember, we said integrals, which are arkan, they are pillars, and if any of these pillars are not found in the act is invalid. Khair. First one we said was an-niyya, intention. And I'm not sure if I mentioned when we done wudu. So intention or the niyyah itself, you say the Arabic definition of it is قصد الشيء مقترنا بفعله. So intending something at the time of doing the act, or simultaneously intending an act whilst doing it. So in this case, intending ghusl at the first instance, the water touches your body. So regardless of where someone starts to wash themselves. Now, because we said, obviously ghusl, we did not mention from the arkan of ghusl that tartib is a must. Yeah, tartib is not a must in ghusl. Even if you start on you're washing your legs, you start washing your head and so on, you must intend at that point. Now if you wash, let's say for example, you wash your whole body and then you remember you've not intended but you've only got your head to wash, and then you go and wash your head, you intend and you wash it whilst washing your head, that will not suffice. You will have to make sure after intending the whole body becomes wet after that. Is that clear, yeah? Just like wudu, remember if we said if someone forgets intention and at the time of washing their face, they have to go back and do everything that follows. Now, remember we said إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ. If you can remember, we said إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ وَإِنَّمَا لِكُلِّ امْرِئٍ مَّا نَوَىٰ. Indeed, deeds or the reward of deeds depend on their intention, and everyone will have what they intend for. So in this case, that's why our madhab is very specific. When you're about to perform ghusl, you must have a specific intention. If you can remember the Shafi'ī definition we gave at the start, you have to have a specific intention, whether it is to remove hayd, whether to remove janaba, whether it is just the fard of ghusl, or removing hadath akbar and so on. All of these are must. Okay, or even if it's, for example, you're intending ghusl for sunnatul jum'ah, it's a must. Okay, and so if someone just comes and says, nawaitul ghusl, I intend to perform ghusl, is that sufficient? Why not?
It could be like a sunnah ghusl, or it could be anything.
Yeah, so it could be any. So you can't be general, you have to be specific. Yeah, so someone can't just say that. And just to mention one thing over here with regards to, just a side point, this is with hadath akbar, we know the most obviously well-known opinion is that hadath is of how many types? 2 types, yeah, which we mentioned at the beginning. Hadath is of 2 types. Hadath asghar, minor impurity, and hadath akbar, major impurity. So some of the ulama, they say hadath akbar is of 2 types. So some say actually hadath is of 3 types. So they say there's the minor, there's the intermediary, so the middle, mutawassita, and then there's the akbar. But some say no, there's hadath asghar, which requires wudu and so on, and then hadath akbar splits into 2. Okay, some which is awsat, so middle, and some which is ghalidha. So for example, ghalidha being the major one will be something like hayd, nifas, that you don't have control over. You cannot perform ghusl in this state and so on. You have to wait until it finishes. When they say that the middle one or the awsat is, they will put someone in the state of janaba. So for example, someone has had a wet dream, or someone has slept with their wife and so on. They have power, or they have control over when they can perform ghusl, right? So they just categorize them into these categories. And then next one is the removing of impurities. Removing of impurities, which is the third point that the Musannif mentioned. So, but with regards, the second integral the Musannif mentioned. But with regards to this is Imam Rafi'i's preferred opinion. Now in the madhab, let's mention these 2-3 points first and then I'll explain. So he, rahimahullah, he says that one must wash away the najasa first and then go in for ghusl. So for example, you've got najasa on your body. According to Imam Rafi'i, 2 washings are necessary in this position. One washing for removing the impurities, and then the second washing is actually going in for the ghusl. Understood? And then Imam Nawawi rahimahullah, though, he objects. He says that no, it is sufficient to wash both together simultaneously. So if you've got najasa on your body, you could just go into the shower or go in for your ghusl with the intention of removing hadath akbar and actually just removing it whilst you're having the ghusl. Now, according to the madhab, I bought this as the second one, as this is what the musannif has mentioned, this is what the author has mentioned, but the most correct opinion in the madhab is that this is not an integral. Okay, it's not an integral, and Imam Nawawi rahimahullah's opinion is that which is taken according to the madhab. And just a side note again, in the madhab, when Imam Nawawi and Imam Ar-Rafi rahimahumullah, they both agree on something on a matter, then this is what the madhab says. If these two scholars agree on something, then we say this is the madhab. No ifs or buts. But if Imam Nawawi and Imam Ar-Rafi differ, Imam Nawawi rahimahullah's opinion is taken. So according to the madhab, we take Imam Nawawi's opinion, but like I said, we mentioned it because the musannif rahmatullahi alayhi, he mentioned it himself. Now, najasa, the musannif, the author, he didn't go deep into it, so I just thought I'll explain where the difference comes in here. Najasa is of two types. Okay? Najasa is of two types. So impurities are of two types. You have ayniyya and hukmiyya. Yeah? Ayniyya and hukmiyya. So ayniyya, these are things which you can see. Impurities you can see. Okay? These are impurities you can see. Examples are plenty. And hukmiyya are those impurities which its traces cannot be seen, but you know it is there. Example we have here, dried up urine. So, I don't know, you're rushing to the bathroom and so on, or outside, but you know that some urine came out and it made your clothes dirty, but by the time you go home, it's dried up. You cannot see it. So, hukman, you know this is dirty. This is impure. Okay? This is hukman. And then you have ayniyya, which is impurities which can be seen. And these are divided into three categories. You have light, mukhaffafa, you have in between, mutawassita, and then you have heavy or strong, which are mughallada. Okay? And all three have different rulings to them. Example of the light one. Let me see if I can hadith book. Example of the light one which we have here is the baby boy's urine. Now a baby boy who has had nothing but breast milk only. Okay, so a baby boy who's not fed on anything but the mother's milk. When you get this urine on you, it is sufficient to just throw water over it or sprinkle water over it. Okay, now it's specific to a baby boy, not a baby girl. Even if a baby girl, same age as the baby boy, I don't know, say they're twins, born as twins, and the girl urinates on your clothes or so on, you have to wash that. The same, that's the same, they take the same ruling as the adults in this. And there is a hadith for this as well, where Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he mentions in the hadith of Qais radiallahu anha, in short, she says that she took her young baby, her young child to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and whilst he had him on, he sallallahu alaihi wasallam had the baby on his lap, he urinated on him, and all he did was he sprinkled water over it. But with regards to the baby girl, a hadith of Ali radiallahu anhu, and both of these are hadith as authentic. Hadith of Ali radiallahu anhu, where he says that the Prophet ﷺ, he says with regards to the boy who is just breastfeeding, you just sprinkle water over it, but that of a baby girl you wash. That of a baby girl you wash. And the ulama, they're all in agreement that this is only talking about for the baby boy who is only on the mother's milk. If for whatever reason a 1-year-old is they're eating proper food, if they urinate, the ruling applies as the adults. Hope that's clear. And the mutawassita, so is anything in between, will be blood. These are just a few examples. So blood, urine, madhi, wadi, stool, pus, vomit. All of these are impurities that which if you get on your clothes, you must wash off. Okay, you must wash off. And when we say you must wash off, we mean that the characteristics, the three characteristics which we spoke about early on with regards to impurities getting into water, so the taste, the color and the smell, they must be washed off for that garment to be classed as pure, or for whatever that thing is to be classed as pure. They have to be washed off. Now, if you try so hard and, for example, you cannot remove the color is just stained, it's not going anywhere, as long as the smell and the taste are removed, then there's no problem. And obviously this is, many a time is the sisters go through this. So if they washed as many times as they could, but the color is still not going away, the garment will still remain pure. And the last one, the heavy, which is, or the mughallada, is dogs and pigs. Okay, this impurity is obviously the worst. Meaning, and remember we said about cleaning or removing najasa of dogs and pigs. According to our madhab, they have to be washed how many times? Who remembers? 7 times. And how many times with soil? Once. Yes, once has to be with soil. And according to, obviously like we mentioned, according to the Hanafi school, they say no, even 3 times is sufficient. The whole point is to actually just get rid of the najasa. The point is to just remove the impurities. طيب. So I hope we're clear with regards to this najasa. And the third point, inshallah, which is the last, which the Musannif he mentions, is pouring water over your whole body. Pouring water, this means that the skin and the roots of the hair must be wet. The whole body. Yeah, so the whole body must be cleaned, or must be wet. So this is different from wudu, in the sense that in wudu, thick hair and thin hair are treated differently. If you remember, we said about the beard. Thick beard, you don't have to get water all the way into the skin. But the thin beard where the skin can be seen, you have to wash the skin. But with regards to ghusl, whether thick, thin, wherever the hair is on the body, you have to wash it to its roots. And it has to get onto the skin. And saying that it has to get onto the skin, basically anything that's there as a barrier, you have to remove it. So main thing I can think of, or most relatable example one can think of, is women fake nails or nail polish, especially this so-called halal breathable one. I don't know if you have heard of it. It's been about for some time now, but they say that this halal nail polish, even if you do wudu, water seeps into it and it goes onto your nail. But just scientifically, just thinking about it, it must be oil based. And if you put water over it and it doesn't wipe off, it's definitely oil based. Now, clearly it's creating a layer between the nails and the water going through. So to say that, it's got holes or something that water goes through and the likes, it's all nonsense. So sisters have to be very careful if they actually use such things. And obviously, for example, for men, say you're doing DIY, you finished painting, and then you went to sleep, you woke up, had a wet dream, you need to have a shower. You need to make sure that oil-based paint, for example, is off your skin before you actually perform the ghusl, or the ghusl will not be accepted or will not be valid. And this includes braided hair. Okay, so now this includes men as well these days, because even men, I think more men probably braid their hair than women these days. Yeah, so I'm not pointing fingers. So with regards to this, with the braids, if you know that water will not reach inside, because some braids are just loose, but you have some which are very tight, like you can actually see the skin is like going left, right, and so on, because that's how hard it's being pulled. These braids must be removed because water will not go in between. Yeah, water will not go in between. So one has to be very careful with regards to that. So those that work in a salon or whatever, these are things that you need to remember. And we must wash, it's meant to say. All that is apparent must be washed. Now, according to the Shafi'ī school, rinsing of the mouth, rinsing of the nose, these are not a must. But according to the Hanafi school, according to Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal, these are a must. So like we said, obviously to come out of khilaf and stay away from differences, we say it's better that you do all of these. So rinse your mouth, rinse your nose, and so on. And the last but not least point is, so parts that are sometimes exposed and sometimes not exposed have to be washed as well. Now, for example, when one relieves themselves in the seated position or in the squatted position, certain parts of the body are exposed where normally they wouldn't be if they're standing. Now, these parts all have to be washed as well. They all have to be washed. So this is why a lot of ulama, you'll see, they advise that when someone is performing a ghusl, to sit or to squat and to make sure that they wash these places properly, or they go perform istinja and make the intention of actually ghusl from that point and clean themselves properly in that area and perform ghusl. Then you will be sure that water has reached all places. Khair, inshallah, I think we'll stop there for today. What's the time? No, khair. So we've gone close to an hour. Are there any questions? No questions. I think on Zoom, are there any questions? طيب. So khair. So inshallah we'll stop here. Then no questions. Till next week we'll carry on with the sunan of ghusl. Wa akhiru da'wana alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Wa sallallahu ala sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.